Well, hello, welcome. It's 11 a.m. where I am. So that means we should begin. And thanks for coming. Today is day 5 of Introduction to Python. Today is Saturday, August 5th. I did receive an ad hoc question just a few minutes ago about the R courses that I made available. First, I should tell you those coupons they expire in 2 days. So they were good for a month, and I set them all up, I think, on July 7th. So if you want any of those R courses, you should act now. The coupons will expire, and I don't plan on implementing new ones until the next time I teach this course, and that won't be anytime soon. So just so you know. Now, so today we're going to start talking about data structures. And of course, there's a lot to talk about with data structures. We're going to start out talking about lists, which are a mutable structure. They're basically 4 types of data structures in R: lists and tuples, and hopefully we'll get onto tuples today, and dictionaries and sets. But it's not quite that simple. There are different types of each one of these structures, but they all have different properties, and they do different things. Before we get into that, let's take a look at the exercise. So I did send out a solution, my solution. Of course, there's a number of ways you could do any one of these. I don't know how many of you got a chance to try it, and maybe how many were successful, or did anybody have any comments about it? It wasn't that difficult. So anyway, what we have up here, here's I believe the one on the left was the starter program that I gave you. And this was, it was a future variant of the future value calculator program. And the original one goes something like this. Okay, there were rules. He did set up constraints about how much the monthly investment could be. For example, if you put in a really large number like this, it's too big. And the prompts, all they say is it must be greater than 0. Well, $30,000 is greater than 0. So obviously there's some information missing there. If we look into the code, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it said monthly, here it is, monthly investment's got to be more than 0 and less than 1,000. Well, if that's true, you ought to tell them before they're enough. I mean, the idea is to, when you write a program, is to make it not only user friendly and easy to use and functional, a useful program, but it should be informative. In fact, and that's part of ease of use, if it tells you what to do. So monthly investment needed to be between 0 and 1,000, or the only thing that it would do is it would print out this kind of cryptic message: entry must be greater than 0. The yearly interest rate had to be between 0 and 15%. And the prompt that was presented, if you did not enter something in that range, was a little more informative. It says between 0 and 15. And then the number of years between 0 and 50. But you see, of course, when we run this, the user doesn't know that while they're entering numbers. So it's they're playing a guessing game. Yearly interest rate, again, if we enter something too large like 18, it tells you and gives you a chance to recover. Number of years, again, if you enter something crazy like -3 years, it catches that and tells you. And it just simply prints out the future value at the end of each yearly period. And then through the control of the while loop, the outer while loop that you see up here, where choice is set to a lowercase y, it asks the user whether they want to continue or not. And but the truth of the matter is, you can enter anything other than uppercase or lowercase y, like an X, and it interprets that as a no. So that's kind of a kludgy thing. It should be more precise and should tell the user. So in the exercise, you were to make changes. You were to do this on a quarterly basis instead of a yearly basis. I asked you to give a try to formatting the output in terms of dollars and cents. And there's actually a couple of ways you could do that. You could do it manually using an F string if you just place the dollar sign and the comma in the right place. Maybe not the comma. You can do it manually for sure. Or you can import what I did. I imported this locale module, which enables you to do this. You can set the locale, which means the local geographic place, to different parts of the world. And if you say, you set it to this string, EN_US, it knows to make dollar signs in cents, but you have to format it. So let's take a look at this. Let's look at both of them right next to each other. Well, here, let's run this. So here's a solution. Enter your first and last name. Okay, well, we've done this. In the solution, it tells the person what to enter before they do. Okay, and that's obviously useful. And again, if they enter something out of the range, it tells them again, don't do that. Gives them the range. So we'll say a quarterly investment is $250, and yearly interest rate, again, between 0 and 16%. And it works if you don't enter the right number. Of course, it prompts them. So say yearly would be 12%. Number of years, let's just do 5. And notice it's printing out. It performs the same sort of calculation, but it's doing it on a quarterly basis instead of a yearly basis. And it is formatting everything as dollars and cents with two decimal places, like it should, and a comma in the right place. And then when it says, would you like to continue, yes or no, if you enter something other than yes or no, it catches that and says your choice must either be yes or no. You can't just enter a Y. It catches that. You have to enter yes or no. So if I say I don't want to continue, I say no. It ends the program. Okay, so if we take a look at the code right here, I put documentation. I forget what these numbers correspond to. I think these correspond to the requirements that were listed in the original assignment, but it's good to document blocks of code if they do something in particular. But I use the same while loop, but I code it to yes. And then much of my code is very similar to the original program. But the parameters, the ranges, of course, are different. And it prompts the user before they enter something. I use floats instead of, let's see, what do they use? No, they use floats too. But I made the prompts when they're entering numbers to be more descriptive, more complete. And then you've got to change the computation in order to get it print out quarterly. And obviously, there's 4 quarters in a year or 3 months in a quarter, as opposed to 12 months in a year. So if you look at the way they do the computation, right, they do this they determine whether the month is a product, an even product of 12 right here. Where is it? Right here, right? If 12 into the number of months is 0, then it prints out at that point, which would be every 12 months, 12, 24, 36, and so forth. So what you had to do was, first of all, you had to change it to quarterly. Right, they're entering in a yearly interest rate. So to get it quarterly, you have to divide it by 4 as opposed to 12, and then by 100. And then you want to change everything into quarters. So whatever years they put in, number of years, you multiply that by 4. And then these lines display the results for each year. Well, that's not correct. Actually, it should be these lines display the results for each quarter. And it makes a reasonable adjustment. And I format the output using this function that is in that locale module, and it works. Okay, so again, the way you do, there's a number of ways you could do this, but this is one way that it works. Okay. Yeah. Now we will have another exercise today that you may find to be a little more challenging, but let's start talking about lists and tuples.
Can I interrupt with a question?
Oh, of course.
Okay, can you explain a little bit more the sections of the locale? Like there's 2 locales. One, you're setting the locale, and then further down you're setting the currency. And in the first locale, there's a locale and a first piece and a second piece, and the second one again, there's a first piece and a second piece. What's all going on there?
Okay. That's a good question. I'm not sure I have the complete answer. Here's the first piece, right? Format local currency. And I think that's really the only piece. You have to use this function, which is, all right, which is in the, oh, I see, locale, set, yeah, I get what you're saying. Okay. We're importing the locale module. First thing you have to do is you have to tell the locale module what locale you're talking about. So that's what this first piece does. It just tells it that any formatting commands that I evoke later in my code tells it that I want this locale. I want it to be US and I want it to be English. If you do a help on this, let's try this again. Let's try help locale. Here is the complete reference. This is the Python documentation, classes. What I really did is I called up another program that used it. And he has some examples later in the textbook. I know this isn't real helpful for you, but you could probably simply Google it. Here we go. Set locale. Yeah, you have to go through this to really get down into the weeds. But what you're doing, to generally answer your question, what you're doing here is telling it up here, you're declaring what sort of formatting you want, where you are. And then down here, I'm actually evoking the type of formatting that I want through this function, locale.currency.